Welcome to episode 13 of the Imperial Tides podcast. I'm your host, Holden, and I'm joined today by my Fada. How are you doing today, Fada?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Good. Yesterday we watched Star Trek, the motion picture, 1979, and I just wanted to ask you a bunch of questions about it because, of course, you watched it back when it first came out and everything, so you've got that original, that OG fan perspective and everything.
Oh, absolutely, and it was incredible that you were excited to be watching it for me. So that was probably something I've been waiting quite a long time for you to come and actually share a movie that is important to me, together. So thanks for that.
Right, yeah, and that was it was interesting to get a little perspective onto, what was popular at that time anyway. So first thing I want to know is, just right off the bat, why do you think so many people treat Star Trek like a religion? What exactly is it about it that made it such a cultural phenomenon?
Well, first of all, it was what Gene Roddenberry did was it can't be said enough, and also you've heard it a million times, but it was really groundbreaking. He was doing things well before everybody is considering, the new, I hate the word woke. We both hate that word.
Woke, yeah.
But just like I showed you, if you look at any scene and any of that in the actual motion picture, you look at the rec room meeting where Kirk, holds the meeting and shows the footage from Epsilon 9 space station, and you just freeze the frame and you look into the crowd of the crew, you'll see women, you'll see Asian people, you see black people, you see a Native American person, you'll see Hispanic people, and it's not being rammed down your throat. It's natural, it's organic. And when Roddenberry started that in the 60s, the studios actually fought back, and said that, they were very uncomfortable with it. But then by the time that you're invested into, like the space heat, which you and I just watched 2 seconds ago, you don't even notice that, there's a woman there, there's a man, there's an Asian guy there, there's a Hispanic guy there. Gene Roddenberry had done that, from the beginning, and that's just the foundation. We're not even talking about all his other issues, all the other messages that they have sent, about equality, about, pacifism, about militarism, bad or good, in both, because, he had a tendency to balance a lot of things, and he spoke to a lot of different people. You'll go back as you finish the original series, and you'll see a bunch of things in there that have to do with social statements and social issues that are very relevant at the time and still carry over today. And then you get to see it, and it holds up. And besides some of the very telling, period artifacts that you're going to see, like McCoy's clothing and his medallion, as he gets off the transporter, the film still holds up, and the series still holds up because it's supposed to be fantastical.
Right. So would you say that Gene Roddenberry he's like a classical liberal, but not a partisan necessarily, and then maybe he doesn't show that partisanship. If he does have it, it's not in the show, and that's what keeps it from being woke as it is now. It's more universal because it's vague and it doesn't.
So where's the microphone on this one? Is it?
It's just right. Yeah,
it's here. Okay, this is. I didn't know what you're doing with.
I'm doing both so that we can have the phone as a backup in case.
All right. So okay. Here's the thing. Just like we're talking about what liberalism has changed, definitely very. I view him, just my personal opinion. He was very liberal. He was a liberal. He was liberal in the best sense of the word. He was liberal about equality, about objectivity, about fairness, about equivalency and inclusion. He would not be a liberal. He would not be a liberal today.
Right.
I don't think so, because a liberal today has very many different meanings. It's basically to be liberal in 2020 means that you have no tolerance for anybody else's message unless it's your own. So you would have to, basically liberals today have become what they were fighting against in the 60s. So to answer your question, was Roddenberry a liberal? Absolutely. And in the best example of the way to be a liberal.
Well, because liberalism is about liberty, human liberty.
Liberty.
And egalitarianism.
And respect,
mutual respect.
Yes, and we don't have that nowadays.
So the idea that everyone deserves respect, and that's why every group is represented, and also, but also represented in a way that is accurate to reality as well. With
right,
just to not unimmerse the viewer, I suppose.
Right, because once you take yourself out of it, like Charlie's Angels, the latest Charlie's Angels, they keep saying, Elizabeth Banks keeps saying that women, men aren't ready for movies with strong women, and
Right.
Rogue One, Wonder Woman,
Oh, Terminator.
Terminator, Sarah Connor, all these things, prove that wrong.
Yeah, Stargate, everything.
Because you're not making the story about a woman, you're just making a good story,
Right.
and the protagonist, the hero, just happens to be a woman.
Lara Croft.
Yeah, because a mother wants to protect her son and save her son.
Right.
The basic premise of Terminator. It's not about it's a woman who's powerful, which she is, but that's not how they started.
A mother protecting her son and caring about her kid, that's gender normative. That's too
Well,
it's too
a person
oppressive.
a person protecting their child. Let's put it that way. Yeah. If we want to get silly about it,
Right, but so then to bring this back to Star Trek, of course, you think Star Trek was progressive in a way that was organic and more honest because
yeah, for us looking back, but you have to remember back then it didn't seem organic. It was their equivalent of being things being shoved down your throat,
pushing the envelope.
Yeah, pushing the envelope, and forcing an issue. That's how that's how they saw. But because Roddenberry did that, what he did now seems low key compared to what's happening now.
Did you ever see any of that stuff when you were a kid, or at all, or was it ever weird to see a bunch of different people of color and stuff on TV like that, or was it just like whatever,
In hindsight, yeah, because you grow up on Disney, and it's just all white casts. All the TV shows are all white. The only Asian, I'm talking about Asian. You always, even back in the '70s, early '70s, when I had my first memories. The '70s and growing up, the casts were never at what do you call it? They never needed or they were never at a loss for diversity as far as but diversity had to be Hispanic or Black. You would never even see even with MASH or period serials. Shows back then, you couldn't even get proper Asian people. I for the longest time thought that the people of Korea were Hispanic people.
Really?
Because just go back and look at the episodes of MASH. You've heard of MASH, the TV show, right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
You look at the episodes of MASH. Koreans were played by Asians.
Really?
Yeah, and then the next biggest.
Wait, you said Koreans were played by Asians?
I'm sorry, Asians. The Korean Asians were played by Hispanics.
Oh, okay.
And then the next. Stand-in were Filipinos, and the main characters. If they had an episodic character, it would be played by a Japanese American or something like that.
Right.
So you and I know what because you're who you are.
Right.
We are who we are. We know what Asian. We can tell the difference between Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Thai, Filipino people just by looking at facial features and characteristics. And back then in Hollywood. It was just it wasn't done, and even to the fact that I growing up as an American, first generation American, I was confused at real Koreans.
Really?
When I first met them, yeah.
Huh.
Because I thought they all looked like I thought they were supposed to look like they did on MASH.
Yeah, right.
Which is not representative of what real Korean people look like.
Exactly. Exactly.
So and to answer your question. To answer your question, everything was predominantly white, and you had supporting characters that were people of color. And when you did have an Asian person that had a primary role or a secondary role, like if you look at the Jack Klugman TV show Quincy, he was a medical examiner. His assistant was Sam. And I think Sam was played by an Asian American man. That was one of the very first non-derogatory roles for Asian American people in America because, he didn't speak with an accent.
So it wasn't like the guy from Breakfast at Tiffany.
No, it wasn't Mickey Rourke doing
Rourke.
The landlord at Breakfast at Tiffany's with, eye prosthetics for his, because, white guys just don't have an epicanthal lid.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It wasn't like Fu Manchu or
or like Mr. Roboto and music and just everything.
Oh
like
my
that.
God, yeah.
Just countless examples, maybe.
Countless examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't like the Disney show. they had the Triple R Ranch during the Mickey Mouse Club, which was a little show that they would show during the half hour. And it'd be like a 10-minute episode, sandwiched in between the dancing and the singing and everything. And it was about these kids that went to a dude ranch. And the cook is an Asian guy, or in Bonanza, the cook is an Asian guy,
Right.
Bruce Lee was the first one to break out of that
And be like a badass.
right.
And
And I think, even although I've only seen a few episodes, the Green Hornet was one of the first ones too.
Oh, because it's Kato, right?
Yeah.
Like the valet.
Yeah, the valet. He was equal in crime fighting, and as far as skills and everything went too. But I think he might have had an accent, which I'm sure the real actor didn't have one. I don't know that for sure. I'm sure people are screaming right now listening to me, and how can I talk about it? But I really haven't seen, other than maybe 5 or 10-minute clips, in retrospectives or documentaries about it. I haven't actually sat through and watched a whole episode, so that remains to be seen.
Right. But so then, and then like you said earlier, how Gene Roddenberry was pushing the envelope and all that. I mean, there were some things that he wasn't, just because of the times or whatever. Like for example, Khan is not, he's not Native American. He's played by a Hispanic playing a Native American, right?
Well, no,
there are examples like that, aren't there?
Khan
in the actual
is
show.
Asian Indian, not indigenous.
Okay.
Native American. Yeah,
He's from the country of India in Asia.
Yes.
Okay.
Which you should have noticed by his dress.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
and the way that
and then the chick painted him with the turban.
And the way that Lieutenant MacGyver's painted him in a turban. And, because he's Sikh.
Okay.
So that should. And that's why I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna sandbag you right here.
Sandbag me. Go ahead.
Because if you weren't on your phone half the time,
right,
as you're watching an episode, you would have picked up on that.
Okay.
And you would have also picked up on the fact that when they did debrief in the briefing room, in the staff room, they were talking about that scene where Spock was talking about how you seem to admire him and everything.
Yeah.
And it was said in that monologue. I don't know which one said it. Whether it was Scotty or McCoy, but they said he ruled a quarter of the world in 1993.
Yeah,
because his empire was from was it east to West Asia, and part of Europe. So that's not North America.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
right.
There we go.
See, you miss so many things because.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
When we do these, and this is me as a dad talking, when we do these, you need to. Take notes still, but you need to pay. So you're gonna find your balance on how to do that, and that's how you're developing your skill on doing that right now. So this is good.
It's all a work in progress, as they say. But so to return to the original question about like why Star Trek is such a cultural phenomenon. I mean, there have to be reasons other than political and cultural ones. Like, what about the aesthetic and like for the genre itself, for sci-fi? Like, what did it do for sci-fi and for I guess geekdom and stuff? Was there even anything like that before things like Star Trek came around?
Well, there were, but there weren't. People will say there was Lost in Space. The Robinson family.
Never heard of it before, unfortunately.
Yeah, give it a Google after we finish this.
Sure.
I think that was 1966. Sci-fi was predominantly just cartoons, and I'm sure anyone else listening will probably be yelling 5 other shows that I'm just not thinking about right now. But the biggest thing about Star Trek was that it was in color too.
In color.
And this is when color TV started coming out. So that's why you have all those colors on the sets, the color gels to flood the passageways, and the bridge with its bright red hand railing, the command section uniforms with Kirk and his greens and his greens and yellows, and science represented by blue with Spock and McCoy. Engineering and security is red with Scotty.
Yeah, the primary color coding and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see that there's everything is just done for color. People were tuning in the 60s. Half the time they didn't even care about the content of what they were watching. They were going to tune into the show that gave them the most color on their TV set.
For the visual spectacle of it.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that was why Star Trek succeeded. I'm saying
that's part of it.
That's part of its appeal, maybe.
But you didn't have a color TV when you watched it.
We did not have color TV until 80-something.
So then, what was it like to finally watch it in color? After all those years of being deprived of that, like was it?
It was watching something new.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
it
Yeah.
was watching something new all over again. And you got to remember, I stopped being interested in Star Trek right around, I would have to say, Wrath of Khan. After Wrath of Khan, I would go see the movies and everything, but I just wasn't. It wasn't big for me anymore.
What changed for you?
Flight school.
Just
Yeah,
real life.
1990 when I went to flight school. We would study and work hard all week. Go out and learn how to fly, and we would take a break. And the biggest thing was, and I can't remember what the big TV night was, Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, but whatever night that was, we'd meet up at five of us would meet up at somebody's place would host it differently every week, and that person would cook dinner, and then we would watch the show called In Living Color, and then we would watch Star Trek, The Next Generation. So that rekindled my interest in Star Trek. But when I say I wasn't interested for a while, that wasn't that era seemed like a long time when you're 20 years old. So really, when I just kind of lost interest in 5 or 6 years, it wasn't that long.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I still bought, I still watched, Next Generation when it came out in 86 or 87, whatever year that was. I'm sure some Star Trek fan is going to just be, again, goes, dude, how do you not know? It was 1986 or 87.
Right. Yeah.
But, I really wasn't that interested in it until, heavy interest in it. I still was casually interested in it. But then that also renewed, because of Next Generation, that also renewed my interest in the original series, in the original cast. And I think in '93, when Undiscovered Country came out, that was perfect timing, and a perfect send-off to, the original franchise.
Okay. Interesting.
They almost couldn't do a better final movie than that one. And when you get to that movie, maybe you'll agree with me.
Really?
Yeah, maybe. We don't know.
We'll see. Yeah. Only time will tell.
Yep.
But how about this? Let me ask you a dumb question now. So like Star Trek and all this other, the stereotype is that a lot of people who like it are morbidly obese 30-something-year-olds living in their parents' basement or whatever, still. Right. Do you feel productive when you think part of the appeal is that like watching something like that makes you feel like you're vicariously working, especially Star Trek, which is like, it's the military. It's like everyone's got like a task to do kind of, do you feel productive when you see the crew work in Star Trek stuff? Does it remind you of your Navy experience and everything, your military experience? And also, the second part of that question, do you think that's part of the appeal? Like people can feel like they're working and like they can get into it and stuff. Like it feels like a job or something. It gives them purpose, where they might otherwise not have it.
Well, I can't speak for the 300-pound 30-year-old living in his mom's basement.
You sure?
Eating Hot Pockets. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I think I think you're pretty sure of that too. But possibly that's it gives them a sense of accomplishment or feeling or living vicariously through the adventures and the watch standing in the service of the Starfleet personnel that they see on the screen, be it small or big. But for me, to answer the other part of the question, for me, not really. You've watched these with me, and you've noticed I'm yelling at the screen half the time, saying that.
Calling out the inconsistencies.
Yeah, well, calling out the inconsistencies. Like why would Kirk ever, especially in the motion picture, have to take command of the Enterprise when he already, as a ranking flag officer, coming aboard, the ship already is in command of the Enterprise.
Well, compare that to something clear that like most people would be able to understand to highlight the ridiculousness.
Well, we were talking about being a subway manager, and the district manager comes in. The subway manager is still managing the subway, and the district manager doesn't need to take over the day-to-day managing of the subway. But the subway manager still has to take orders from him. He's still we're gonna have a menu change. Okay, we're not serving, whatever anymore. We're shifting over to, Philly, steak, cheesesteak sandwiches. You don't need to be the manager of that subway to make that happen. You just tell the manager of that subway to make it happen.
Exactly.
So the fact that Decker needed to take a reduction in rank to commander, that's always been punitive. And for those people that want to say, well, this is, 300 years in the future, you don't know what's going to happen. Hey, but it's this basic hierarchy. It's this basic social hierarchy.
Well, what if the society was so busy like developing technology that they forgot about basic human hierarchical structure?
Well, then that goes against what the betterment of the growth of man and civilization, human civilization. altogether, which is the message of Star Trek. So that would be hypocritical to.
But is Star Trek supposed to be idealistic, though?
Yeah, but idealistic to forget that a mother is still supposed to be, a parent. Okay, we won't use gender terms. A parent is still supposed to be nurturing and protective of their offspring.
Right.
Some things are just so basic they don't change. They shouldn't change. Kirk could come aboard and he could still, sit in the captain's chair, but he doesn't have to become the actual captain of the Enterprise. That is just a plot and a writer's device.
Right. So that's like if, the people who do like school checkups or whatever come in and say, we're going to be the principal for a day or something. And then it's like kind of similar to that.
Yeah, but even more disruptive. In a carrier group, there's always a one-star admiral at least embarked aboard the carrier.
Right.
If not the cruiser. We hosted the commander carrier group Constellation, and he was on board our ship, which was a cruiser, for a month. A couple of weeks, not all together, but
not
a couple
a
weeks.
Month.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was like 2 weeks here, a week there, whatever. We have a command stateroom underway where it's supposed to be for flag officers, which is better than the captain's stateroom. Okay.
Right.
And any time that we wanted to do anything, if he wanted to embark aboard our cruiser, which is the closest example, of the Enterprise. The Enterprise is considered a cruiser in the Star Trek Starfleet world. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So if that admiral was on our cruiser, the captain would still take all orders from him.
Okay.
And even during, any type of engagement, any type of activity, the the admiral would be either in combat information systems. He really wouldn't be on the bridge because the bridge on a real Navy ship there's no equivalency in Star Trek.
Okay.
That's just like taking Sulu's, helm station, and basically that's what the bridge does. It steers the ship. Combat CIC, Combat Information Center, is really what you would think about in the terms of Star Trek for a bridge. That has tactical, that has sonar, that has radar, that has air, that has all the command functions down there. You just steer from the bridge. But, we call it a bridge in Star Trek because,
convenience's sake or whatever.
Well, and it would also be the evolution of it probably.
Okay.
But...
so according to the world's like internal logic, it makes sense. It checks out.
Except for the fact that it's located on top of the secondary hull, the saucer hull.
Oh, okay.
The bridge actually should be right in the middle of the most, the CIC, the bridge, where you have all your command functions, should be, especially with the technology of Star Trek, where you actually don't have any portals on the bridge to see outside. That view screen is basically a repeater from a camera or a sensor outside in the Star Trek world, right? So the bridge actually should be in the middle of the densest part of the ship.
Why, though?
For protection, for battle damage.
Why would that protect it, though, exactly?
Well, if you have a phaser blast or a photon torpedo that needs to go through 5 decks to get to the bridge, it's more protected.
Because the bridge is technically the most important part of the ship, so you would want it to be...
Right, that's where all your command and control is.
Right, yeah.
So why would you put it at the top where, let's say your shields go down, or your nav deflector goes down, and a space particle or a rock can hit it and take out everybody?
Right.
It should travel through most of the bulkhead. It should have the most bulkhead and the most density of mass of that ship, of that vessel to travel to before you could take out the critical function of a ship.
Makes sense.
And this was argued, ad nauseum on all the Star Trek boards and all the forums before there was, social media.
Well, like back in like the late 90s or like...
Yeah, Usenet boards and
okay.
Even in fan newsletters and everything.
Right.
It's been addressed before. But does that bother me? Absolutely not. I still enjoy the show.
But you still see it and you kind of laugh at it a little bit and you
we all laugh at it. All us military people that love Star Trek, all us vets, all us active duty military people that, if you want, you can pick it apart.
But it's like an affectionate kind of picking it apart.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So now, I guess let's get into the actual, the movie itself with that background that we have. Just right off the bat, what would you rate Star Trek: The Motion Picture out of 10, and why? And for this, you can have 2 separate ratings. You can have one that's subjective, and then you can have one that's like purely objective. more about the technical aspects and the storytelling and everything. So
subjectively, I rate it 10 out of 10 for me. It's my favorite. It's tied for my favorite Star Trek feature movie, full-length movie, live action movie. Out
of all the 5, and then does that include
easily for the original franchise from Star Trek 1 through 6? It's definitely my number 1.
Okay.
But if you want to include the expanded universe, to hijack Marvel in a Star Wars term. But if you want to include the the Next Generation movies and J.J. Abrams movies, I think it's still number one, but it would probably be tied with the first Next Generation cast, outing, which was called Generations.
Okay.
And many fans will disagree with me, and they say that movie sucked. It was, plotting. It was, sloppy. It was, Kirk dies. Spoiler alert. Sorry. Okay, yeah, you hadn't watched it before, but Kirk dies in that one, but he doesn't. But he does anyway. So to me, that's my objective for the Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Objectively, I would probably give it, I would give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
Yeah, 7 out of 10.
And why not higher?
Pacing could have been better. They could have tightened up a lot of the plot lines in many parts of it. With McCoy coming off the transporter with his disco suit and, his...
So there are some things that date it.
Very much
including the uniforms as well, right?
Well, the uniforms, to me, they don't date it because that was part of the time and it doesn't scream 70s.
No.
But if it can scream, hey, that looks kind of, that looks like it was, a sci-fi aspect that was done in the 70s, which is different than when DeForest Kelley walks straight off the transporter and he looks like he just came out of a yurt in Ojai, California,
right? Yeah.
After a kombucha cleanse, in the 70s, that to me dates it. That puts me right back in the real world. That puts me, in the hippie culture of California, in the 70s and everything. Wherein when you look at the uniforms, they don't, and the hairstyles, other than McCoy, they don't scream 70s. They scream, they don't scream real world 70s. They scream 70s aesthetic sci-fi.
Yeah.
What we think the future should be, kind of like, but not as bad as going back to the 60s and the 70s where the future meant aluminum,
exactly.
aluminum suits and bubble helmets. It's not as bad as that. So,
or in like the 20s, you'll have people in space, but they've got like their tuxedos and no protection from being in space or anything like that. Just something like that. So I guess I'll give my rating now.
Right.
Even though I don't know a lot about Star Trek or anything, I'm not I'm a first time newcomer to all this. I'm just going to lot I'm not going to do a separate subjective and objective one. I'm just going to say generally I would give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Because there's nothing really wrong with that. I don't think. It's just that from what I can tell, the movies like Wrath of Khan and The Undiscovered Country seem better. So if I'm going to rank it in the overall canon or whatever, the library, I would have to say.
And you can change that. You can change that after you go back and watch Wrath of Khan and 6, which is what we all consider the best.
Right. And my point's kind of moot because I don't really have that I haven't developed my own opinions on this stuff yet. But just from what I can tell, the general concept and the fact, like the balance between characterization and maybe like just everything about the other one seemed more fully developed. This one is not a major work within the overall franchise.
Okay.
That's how I feel. It feels somewhat minor, somewhat secondary. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just not as good as some of the others. It's almost like trying to compare apples and oranges, really. But it's like I would just say, because of that, it cannot be the best. But at the same time, there are things that are really good about this one that no other Star Trek movie or bit of media or anything accomplishes. It serves a very specific purpose, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to know for now. Just give me some general pros about the motion picture.
What do you mean?
Good things, positives.
Good
what do you like about it the most? Yeah.
I like the storyline. I liked the fact that we had it was the first time. Well, not the first time, but it was the first time in my memory that we see something that we made go out and then come back later, and be better than us. And that's the Voyager probe, the Voyager 9 probe, going out, going through a black hole, disappearing for 200 years, 300 years, whatever the timeline was. Sorry, I don't remember. And coming back and being this omnipotent, be all undefeatable entity, consciousness.
Consciousness.
Yeah, it's truly a consciousness that basically has evolved beyond its creator's, ability. I mean, that's right out of an Arthur C. Clarke or an Asimov, novel.
Well, Asimov actually did. I believe he did.
He consulted, I think,
he was a
right?
creative consultant, and so was Bradbury. I believe.
Okay.
So they had
Yeah.
some real big sci-fi names working behind on this one.
So and that was also part of its commercial failure in the fact that people just they wanted to see more of the Klingon opening scene, and they
wanted more action.
They wanted more action,
faster narrative pace.
Yeah, and they got that in Khan. They got that in Wrath of Khan.
Interesting, and then of course we already said some of these, but what are some general cons about some downsides about the motion picture for you? Negatives?
Oh, I can't think of any really, other than the fact that
not for you personally, but objectively. Again,
objectively the pacing. The orbital dry dock scene was 3 minutes too long for a lot of people. I don't know how you can be a Star Trek fan and say you there's any such thing as too much Enterprise. To me, every one of those 3 minute long, every second of that scene was just deliciousness, emotional deliciousness of a fantastic design, starship design by Andrew Probert, and the thing is just beautiful. It's a luxury liner in space. The lines are classic. They're not they held up as well today, if not better than they did back in 1979. Also Sid Mead's design for the Voyager vessel, which we never realized on the big screen to see all together. All you saw were just parts and bits of it. But the fact that it's basically a cylindrical tube with spikes, and a lot of lattice work. Very organic, very much holds up to today. You could take that design and put it in a movie today, and it would still, actually it would be best a lot of the designs that have come in the intervening, 40 years. I really find, and people didn't realize that. Oh, I'm looking at a flower. What is freaking iron? There's a sphincter that they're going. Just shut up.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, okay, and for an alien technology, that ship felt very mechanical and yet felt very grown. Meaning organically grown at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But so okay, and then so we've talked about pros, we've talked about cons, we've talked about your rankings and everything. Where would you place this with relation to all the other movies, excluding the J.J. Abrams reboot? Let's do the main five from not even the generations, just main five original series movies.
How would I place it in what context?
Well, you can do two, I guess. You can do one objective, one subjective, or one subjective, one objective.
Oh, you're talking about ratings still?
Yeah. Okay. But is it number one of the five? Is it number two of the five?
It's still it's my favorite. Still my favorite.
Really.
And I think if we want to shovel all the other movies in there together, then it would have to be Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Star Trek Generations. Then it would be probably. I'd have to give it more thought, but just immediately I would say my top five would be Undiscovered Country. The J.J. Abrams Star Trek would be in there too, and then Star Trek Generations.
Oh, okay. But then what about the base five? If you had to rank the original from the original series, the five movies.
Oh, we already talked about that.
You did already?
Yeah, you asked me that like 5 minutes ago.
Well, just to clarify for the audience, I guess.
Yeah, it would be the motion picture, Wrath of Khan, and Undiscovered Country.
And then the last two, you don't count at all. You don't like the one with Spock's
Final Frontier. What is it? The one with Cybok and Spock's brother just doesn't exist for me. That to me, and you'll hear this a lot, and I can't wait for you to understand. When people say that to me is like Highlander 2. You don't understand that, and you've probably heard it from other people. Highlander 2 just does not exist to all us Highlander fans.
Wow.
Yeah, Highlander. Just kind of like how some people say, Aliens 3 doesn't exist.
So it's really that bad.
Yes. Once you get into the Aliens franchise, a lot of people will say Aliens 3 and 4 don't exist. Because they're just, Well,
I've heard they're different. I heard they're depressing or something. Nihilistic.
That's another podcast, but they're just, I don't have anything against any of them. I just appreciate that we were getting Aliens content still. I celebrate them all, but I understand that, out of the three, my least favorites would probably be 3 and 4, Aliens 3 and 4. But that's another topic.
So then where would you rank the motion picture within the context of the first 5 films from the original series? No, I'm kidding. I already asked you that, see. So
I was just like, I don't know what else. I don't know what else I was going.
Yeah, just messing with you at this point.
I already said number 1. I don't know what to do.
Okay, but seriously, so why do you think this movie splits opinions between among fans? You know, because it is your favorite, but that is an opinion that seems to be not very popular.
The one I hear the most is that it was slow. The story was stupid. Fans. The majority of fans wanted Wrath of Khan to be right out of the gate. They to me, I just the motion picture was, to me, it was maybe because I read the Alan Dean Foster novelization first, but to me, it was perfect for me. I have nothing bad to say about it other than just some of the acting and some of the costume choices, like the Epsilon 9 commander.
Right.
The episode was his name. The actor, I don't know if he's credited with a name as a character, but David Courteau. He was, that open collar, DeForest Kelly,
right.
Smock tunic-y thing, and him and DeForest Kelly, just pull me right out of the movie because his parted in the middle hairdo was so 70s. Oh, and then the airlock operator.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You come in. Oh, here, there's all the spacesuit Spock's walking in, and then you see the guy with the '70s porn mustache, and the hair parted down the middle in a near, feathered like Charlie's Angels. That pulled me right back into the '70s.
And you saw looks like that on the street, like when you were back.
That's how everybody looked in the '70s.
Like they really did.
Yeah.
Did you look like that then too?
Yeah. I did. I had my hair parted down the middle. I just didn't have the mustache.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. Oh, you've seen pictures of grandma and grandpas. You just don't. You've just been too into whatever you were doing at the time to not.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. But no, for me, the movie. I understand why people wouldn't like it. There are different types of viewers. There are people who appreciate storytelling, for example, writing over aesthetics, and then there are people who appreciate aesthetics over writing. And then most people are kind of in between. They're balanced. The problem with this movie, the motion picture, is that it's almost entirely made up of nothing but quiet moments. It doesn't seem to be trying to achieve the same thing that the original series did either, by the way. So it doesn't seem like you could argue that it's a natural evolution perhaps, but it's far removed from what people expected because the original series had balance. There were action scenes and then there were the conversations and stuff. Let's get into some philosophical issue. This episode centered around some interesting thought experiment or whatever. You had both. This one is mostly thought experiment. It's like 85% thought experiment, maybe like 25% anything else. Really, I don't know.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in a way, it actually kind of reminds me of like a more refined, like philosophical version of like a '60s drug movie or something like that. There's lots of groovy audio and like visual effects mixed in, and I don't know if that's just because of the times or whatever, and also the colors and everything, but not just that, but also in the unconventionality of the narrative structure as well too, because it doesn't seem as if it tends to meander around a lot, and it tends to do a lot of long shots of just focusing on the V'ger, the giant ship and everything, and there's a lot of that going on, and then of course the scene with the extended Enterprise sequence, there's a lot of that, so it feels like more. There are times where it feels a lot like a musical or a music video rather. Or a screensaver, especially when they're going through the tunnel or whatever. It feels more like some different kind of art form than a film or like an experimental film. Do you get that impression at all?
I do, and you've yet to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey too. So,
and is that a lot like that?
Well, we're going to add that to the watch list, and then let's answer that in that podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
But actually, the movie that this reminds me the most of is Blade Runner in a way. It's like a more sober. Celestial like a Blade Runner, but the difference here. Let me explain the difference though real quick. It's funny because what I was going to say before that, motion picture. It's like an extended journey into the unknown reaches of space. It's immersive. It's a chance for the viewer to experience. I feel the wonder and the beauty of the Star Trek universe without the interruptions of a dominating narrative. I feel like that's what they're trying to go for.
Oh,
here. Okay. Trying to put you in the captain seat too. Because I'm sure that was a fantasy for a lot of people to like find. And especially to come back with something like that. After all these years of hiatus and everything and cancellation and stuff. It's
I've heard that brought up before. That the pacing was to give you a chance to settle into the universe.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a more intimate look at.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that might have been one of the commentaries in the on the DVD when you can put on the directors and the commentaries.
They mentioned that in there.
I don't know if that's where I heard it, or I read it in one of the making of books or Cinefex or something. You're not the first person to say that, so that's a very astute observation on your part.
That's interesting. Interesting. But yeah, no. In this one though, aesthetics definitely do supersede storytelling. I would say that in a way. Because for the most part, it seems as if the plot is it's just there to wrap itself around the film's cinematography and aesthetic aspects. And that's another thing too. I think a lot of the reason why there are so many extended sequences of showing off the ship, showing off all that, is because they finally got a budget. When you're deprived of a budget for years and years, and you get big movie money. It's like of course you're going to want to get every dollar's worth for that. You're going to want to show it off and enjoy it and live it up and all that.
Right.
So yeah. You want to talk about the UBI and all that for a second?
Oh no, I was just I was looking at this. They I had said Alan Dean Foster wrote the book, but actually they were saying that Gene Roddenberry basically the book was erroneously credited to Alan Dean Foster, but Foster only contributed to the ideas of the film story. But the novelization and the screenplay was solely written by Roddenberry. I didn't know that.
He wrote it himself.
Yeah.
Are you sure he wrote it, or was it ghostwriter maybe? In the
I always thought Alan Dean Foster wrote the novelization.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But yeah, you come a little closer.
Okay.
Sorry, that's all. I don't know how much is. We're still figuring this out, but I don't know how. Do you think this will do you think this has range? These because that's where
I don't know because I'm looking at this right here and
Is that good to you?
No, you should look at actually getting some microphones or something.
It's expensive, though.
Yeah, but you can get a lavalier mic for just I want to.
What is that?
I want to read that.
I'll talk about it in a second. Because I got to keep a track on that constantly.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, technical difficulties, but not really.
So what you can do is you can do this.
I can see it fine though.
Yeah,
and
you come and do that. There you go.
Thanks for that.
And you can always have it here. And then the other trick is that you come down here. Where's your recording?
It's right.
This is
just it's all right.
No, which one's the icon for it? I can't.
That one's the recording. But
you're doing it on QuickTime?
Yeah.
Okay.
It works. It sounds good. I need to make sure that you're close enough to the mic.
Yeah, but the other way to do it is to do it this way.
But be careful. Be careful.
We'll worry about that later.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, though. Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, what I want to know is because I feel like the way people criticize this movie, it's kind of there's a bit of a double standard to it because a lot of people they'll drool all over themselves to praise something like Blade Runner, right? But then they'll call the motion picture boring. But then I feel like both films set out to do very similar things. The main difference is that the motion picture is pursuing them on a much smaller scale than Blade Runner, and also that the motion picture is part of a franchise that was already established and already had kind of its own thing going, and Blade Runner was kind of its own thing anyway. It didn't have anything to do with. It wasn't connected. It wasn't attached.
Well, there's two different genres between Blade Runner. Even though they're both sci-fi, there's two different genres between Blade Runner and Star Trek. Star Trek is your utopian ideal future, and then Blade Runner is dystopian, which appeals to.
Oh, those are two sides of the same coin, though.
Yeah, but you also have. You also have what you got your people that want to dress goth in high school, and then you got your people that want to be preps. You can always say that's two sides of the same coin, but they're really two different groups.
Well, you think so?
Yeah, and people that are dystopian have a different palette for aesthetics and pacing. Where you might want to relish lingering in a dystopian landscape, that's through excellent world building from the artistic, the art department and the set designs and everything. You might get that where a Star Trek person might just go, okay, yeah, I've seen a nice, clean, shiny ship already. Let's get to with some storytelling. Let's see Kirk, woo some women, or
So different audiences then.
Different audiences, your father.
But you like both, though.
Yeah, your father is very different in that I like almost all of it. I like Star Trek and I like Star Wars, and you'll run into people that it's one or the other. Oddly enough, you'll run into people that it's just like, Star Wars, and then you'll get people that are, Star Wars fan. They'll say that about Star Trek.
Why is that the case? Are you more well-adjusted than 90% of people?
No, I have no idea. I just like any content. I'm very thankful for any content, any sci-fi content that's out there, good or bad. And if it's bad, I'll just watch it once and I won't talk. Then we'll talk about it. But it doesn't affect my life.
Interesting. Well, you see, the thing that I wrote this here, but I'll say it anyway. I feel like it's kind of deflated, but I will go through with saying it. I think Blade Runner, the difference between Blade Runner and the motion picture, it's interesting. Blade Runner is a somewhat small, somewhat everyday story set in a vast world, right? Whereas the motion picture it's a somewhat large, somewhat significant story set in what feels like a more constrained world. But the funny thing about that is that the motion picture has a whole universe to work with, and yet seems to accomplish less than what Blade Runner could do with a single city. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that has nothing to do with the physical universe, and more so doing with the writing.
Well, yeah.
And that's my answer to that. You're concentrating on the topic in Blade Runner of what it means to be human, and you're doing it.
Well, isn't that partly what's in here as well in the motion picture?
Well, we're not talking about what it means to be human. What it talks about I think this is more about the human journey in the motion picture. I think. I haven't given this much thought, but just off the top of my head, it's talking about the human evolution with, Deckard and Ilia joining. Deckard really joining with V'Ger because Ilia was scanned and data stored.
Right.
Deckard was actually properly scanned and joined with V'Ger, and then we don't know what happened to the resulting next step between V'Ger and an actual emotional human being. I think they need to revisit. It would be nice to see them revisit that properly, in an upcoming franchise. Whether they want to bring that up in Discovery or one of the JJ verse. If we get a Star Trek 4, from JJ Abrams,
properly as in not woke.
Yeah, properly as in done right for storytelling and not for a political agenda.
Well, and that's why Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek is timeless, because it focuses on the story and
it's story first in an ideal universe.
Yeah.
Where if we want to use saying people are woke, it's woke people in an ideal universe, but it's about the story. It's not about trying to put a woke character to shove a message down somebody. So, but then again, remember, people said that about Roddenberry in the '60s too.
Right. Well, and at the same time, there's the other side of things, where it's, we only need all white men and stuff, or whatever. You know what I mean? Oh,
absolutely.
Whatever you call that, the not necessarily political party conservative, but like traditionalist or I don't know, like stickler. Or what would the term for that be? Anti-woke.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't Lucas's point at the time. It was just casting and what was available. It wasn't because of his vision of an all-white universe or something, but A New Hope. 1978. There is no diversity in that movie, and it doesn't bother me because it wasn't a message. It was a message about it was just a story about a small farm boy discovering his past and tilting the windmill. And,
the hero's journey in like a space fantasy setting.
And they addressed that because you weren't born at the time, but that's why we have Lando.
Right.
Because there was an outcry about that, even back, I remember reading People magazine or something, or, the San Francisco Chronicle about, the lack of, and we didn't call it diversity back then. We called it, I think they just said people of color.
Representation or something?
In the Star Wars universe. So that's why Empire has plenty of people,
Right. But the reason why Lando isn't woke is because he's an actual character who has an actual personality and everything, right?
Right. And by woke, what I think we're talking about by when we
caricatures, Mary Sue's awful writing.
Characters either
activists,
race swapped or gender swapped, for the purpose of that. But if you create a good character, it doesn't matter. Lando was just a character. And people will say, well, he was created for that reason. But you know what? He was brand new from scratch character. He could be any race.
Yeah.
he could be Tordarian. I mean,
Right.
What the heck? He could be Twi'lek. It doesn't matter. But make him a human of color. And then that's fine too. It doesn't matter. When you start from scratch like that. Speaking. Just being funny. I have a problem that the only Asian character in the first trilogy is the damn B-wing pilot who can't fly and gets killed in 2 seconds.
Why? Because he can't see.
Yeah, I can't see him. I'm dead.
Yeah. Yeah, but woke is like like some rich people's sons and daughters, working in journalism. They couldn't get a job at journalism, so they come to do comics, or they come to do they infiltrate sci-fi nerd geek culture. It's basically a new form of bullying. Instead of the jocks now, it's like the annoying kid in class who's always raising their hand and always has a point to prove. That's teacher's pet kind of thing. Yeah, the woke type. Yeah, that's the new kind of bully. And
I think you're getting that from.
It's just more stepping on the geeks and stuff.
You're getting that because your second year in college in a predominantly liberal.
But there's some validity
major,
to it, regardless of the background and everything. But there's some validity.
It is, but you don't have to talk about it with such.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. Though. It's true. I'm not trying to, this isn't like some rally cry or anything, but it's just,
Yeah, but it's a very bitter tone that you're taking with it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like they messed up everything. They messed up all the franchises and stuff.
Yeah, but at the same time, you and I can actually go out now and say, "Hey, I think that's racist," and not get laughed at.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that before.
But they take all the credit for it. They think they
couldn't
do
that,
and they weren't even alive when it happened. Though a lot of these people, you know what I mean?
Well, couldn't do that before. Now when I have a complaint, and I do bring them up currently at my job and everything, I'll say that statement there was really racist. Before everybody would just go, "Oh, you're just being sensitive."
Yeah, but again,
now it stops people in their tracks.
But now it's swung too far in the other direction, and now everyone thinks they
that is the scary thing. That is the scary thing. Because, if it's too far in the other direction, then someone just giving you an honest observation can be construed as racist when it's not. That's dangerous.
Well, it's the whole cult of victimhood, isn't it? It's like Marxism, isn't it? At that point.
Well,
cultural Marxism.
I don't know about
neo-Marxism. I don't know.
I'm not really that educated on that to do a really good point-to-point comparison or even anything, give a valid opinion at this point. So I'd have to look into that a little bit more to see the corollaries or the, the analogies between those two.
So anyway, back to Star Trek. But I think for the motion picture, I think, a lot of people just didn't really come to Star Trek, the original series, for the kind of experience that is in the motion picture, For a lot of them, it probably feels like the modern day equivalent of like an overblown fan video of some CG renderings of the Enterprise or something like that goes on for 25 minutes. Or, you know what I mean? The fans were used.
Sure.
Fans back then, especially, were used to a certain thing, and the motion picture just wasn't that. And Star Trek fans, they get very, traditionalistic, I guess, when it comes to the franchise. The new is always being challenged, and you can say that about pretty much every fandom. But I think it can be especially applied to Star Trek. In particular, and it's funny because the original Star Trek itself, it was a new concept. You couldn't even have the base Star Trek if there was no such thing as a new idea or anything.
Yeah, and that's the hypocrisy.
Revolutionary.
That's the hypocrisy in it. They get a formula that's been changed up a little bit with more of a budget. And then they're the first ones to cry out that it's not their Star Trek, which is perfectly valid opinion on their part. But I find that a little ironic.
Yeah.
That Roddenberry had the budget to do his vision, and that was his vision, though, albeit hampered with budget and production difficulties. But he did bring it out, and I really can't say anything bad about the motion picture. It's still my favorite.
But do you think people shouldn't try to force their opinions on everyone? It's like some weird form of casual authoritarianism when it comes to this stuff. I mean, again, casual.
Well, sure, you shouldn't force. That goes with everything. You shouldn't force your opinion on anybody. You have the right to voice your opinion. And then if someone doesn't want to take your opinion or doesn't want to listen to it, that's their right not to do it.
Yeah.
So these fans that don't agree with me, that's their right to do it. And it's my right to tell them that my opinion is different.
Can some of those fans be as bad as like the woke activists trying to find racism in every shot of something? Like all the hair splitting BS.
Well, yeah, you got to stop being angry about this.
Well, there's a difference between affectionately, like you said earlier, picking things apart, and then just being like, no, this has to go, it's over, or whatever. Like this ruined everything. This ruined, that kind of.
You mean like neurotic?
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you mean like neurotic and critical of drinking.
Well, don't say, Yeah. I don't want to start a fight with anybody. But,
they're not going to listen to this.
No, probably not. But,
this is so below his radar. But it's like whenever, and that's the best example that you and I can both have context on. What
shout out to critical drinker and neurotic.
Yeah, what they say I don't disagree with. It's just the delivery.
I like them.
Yeah, it's the delivery that you can only get yelled at for half an hour. You can listen to a rant for only so long before you become numb to it, or your body starts physically recoiling from the spittle and the vial coming through, and the content is lost.
Okay, maybe
the content is lost. The message is lost. I like half the time, you had to tell me that, the whole thing with the whole points. I don't have my words right now, but the problem right now with the Doctor Who franchise, is for me, having watched season 1, Jodie Whittaker's first and second seasons. The problem for me with them is just the writing and the narrative and some of the pacing. I'm not offended by any of the. I don't notice any of the woke stuff because they slowly introduced us into it. By making the Master, a female in the Missy character.
Right.
Seasons before that, and then you knew it was coming, and I think the detractors and the haters, they hate her modern vernacular. She calls her companions her fam. It's like, to me, she seemed mid-30s, whatever. Yeah, it's kind of cringy, but she does it in such a whimsical way that I'm not bothered by it.
Yeah.
But it sure really bothers a lot of other people.
Yeah, I've never watched it, so I don't know. But
yeah, and we'll get to that too after you start off with your, your Eccleston,
we can binge watching and all that stuff.
Yeah,
we can do that for the show. But what I was going to say about
you got to watch the Peter Cushing one too.
Oh yeah.
Is
that classic?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Which one is he? What number?
Oh my God! I think it was a standalone movie.
Oh, okay. I'll give you time to find that out. But what I was just going to say about Star Trek, though, is that the great thing about franchises like Star Trek is that they have a lot of range,
right,
and that there are so many different directions you can go with them. I guess the problem is that, again, anytime they try to do something different, a huge chunk of the fan base kind of flips their shit and forces them back to the basics, which is part of the reason why we get so much of the rehashing of the same kind of overly familiar stuff. Star Trek doesn't always have to be about a crew and a ship. You could have a whole show set at Starfleet Academy, for example, or like a whole show about life on the terraformed moon or something. There's so many possibilities that we
are hungry. We are hungry for things in universe,
right?
And they don't have to be tied to a Kirk, a McCoy, a Spock. We don't always have to be a Skywalker.
Yeah.
Okay. We can, and Rogue One proved that. Mandalorian proved that. And it proves we don't have an equivalent to that, because even with Discovery, we're still shouting back to Spock, by making, the primary character Spock's sister.
Right.
Even with Enterprise, we're still, referencing characters in the original universe. Though Enterprise has been the one that has gone to the well the least.
Enterprise.
Yeah, to go back to the OG original series.
Yeah, but you don't like that because he's like, hey, Sparky, let's go for a walk or whatever, right?
Oh, my God.
Do the impression. Do the Scott. No, do it for the audience. The two people watching,
Captain Archer's typical day is like, oh, golly, gee, look, I'm going to have some orange juice. Hey, Porthos, let's go say hi to a new ship. Oh, look, it's a new ship. Hi, new ship. Let's share technology. oh, what? You don't want to talk to me? How can someone possibly be hostile? I think Mr. Bluebird. I mean, that's literally Scott Bakula's Captain Archer.
Well, he's the guy who like hugs the milkman when he delivers the milk in the morning.
I swear to God, they're animated Disney animals.
With less.
In his stateroom and on the bridge on that one. But that was probably 1 or 2 episodes, and I know where they're trying to go with that. They're trying to say, hey, he's this. He's like, hey, Com, let's see you. Let's hail that new vessel. And to me, I exaggerate, but it just got a little too much for me. And just the obvious sex sell to horny 20-year-old nerds.
The Vulcan.
Yeah. By doing the T'Pol sex scene. Was it the T'Pol decontamination scenes and stuff? They were good. I'm not saying that they weren't good, but it also goes back to, Battlestar Galactica and just making it over sexualized just to get views.
Just cheap.
Yeah,
cheapens it.
I thought that I didn't think it cheapened it. It was good, but I found it unnecessary.
Did it pull you out?
It didn't pull me out, but I acknowledged it made me very conscious of what they were trying to do.
Uh-huh. So you thought it was a little manipulative.
It was very manipulative, and it's a lot different than. What's her name? Alice Krieg's portrayal of the Borg Queen, in the Star Trek, in the Generations movie, where you have a very curvy, very, very attractive, actress in a bodysuit, but that wasn't the scene. The scene was her being the Borg Queen, and
right.
You noticed, hey.
But
body be banging, right?
They did a better job of incorporating that element into the story.
Absolutely,
itself.
that was more mature way of doing it, versus going, oh look, we're going to go some exposed abs, and we're going to go there's a thigh, the scene wasn't about the sex, the scene was.
So you think it was gratuitous?
Gratuitous is a good word, yes.
Okay,
but gratuity sells.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And if you're a Hollywood writer and you're a industry suit, you fall back to these staples because it's easy for you because you want your house in Pasadena, you want your little Mercedes, then you got to pay your taxes.
But so basically, in a better world, you would have wished that Enterprise had a lot less of that gratuity because you wish that they didn't have to make money, that way.
No, because I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I'm just saying it was very. Very transparent. It was very clear what they were trying to do.
Okay.
If they did it more cleverly, like J.J. Abrams does it really well.
Okay.
Okay.
You think so?
Oh, because you go on to one of the very first scenes when you go onto Pike's Enterprise with the eye bridge, because they did the joke is that it looks like an Apple store.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you go onto the eye bridge and you see the blonde short-haired girl with the mini skirt. Right. And you see the other female characters, but they're not camera center,
right.
And they're not focusing on, a midriff or something. Unlike how they did it with,
they're present, not center.
Yeah, they're present, not center. That's a good way to sell it. Uhura with, with the throwback to the 60s costume design with the short miniskirts and the boots. You're appreciating the sexualness of the character, but it's not. The scene's not about that,
right?
That's the way to do it. Unlike what was the Wrath of Khan? What was the Khan movie in the JJ
Into Darkness, maybe.
Into Darkness, yeah. So unlike what's her name's character.
Or where they had a whole scene dedicated to
Alice Eve as Dr. Carol Marcus, right?
Yeah.
They had a whole scene with her in the shuttle bay where she strips off her uniform and she's in a bra, black bra and underwear, and that was like in your face. I laughed. I thought it was funny because Kirk's like looking, Christopher Pine's looking, but that was more. That was as in your face or gratuitous as J.J. Abrams got.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Well, then there was the the Starfleet scene where he wakes up with two Orions, female Orions, which was funny.
Yeah, it's comedic relief.
Or were they Orions? I can't remember. I think they had tails, so maybe they weren't Orions. We're going to have to give that
something
a
like
watch.
that. Yeah. But so yeah, to bring this all back now to the motion picture itself. What was it like to watch it for the first time in the theaters?
It was fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And
That's the scene I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, you've seen that scene, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so then, were the special effects, were they revolutionary for the time?
Absolutely groundbreaking. I talked to you about the way that the Klingon battlecruisers, the Katangas, in the first opening scene. It opens to three of them coming, bow on to you, and then the camera goes high and pans and pivots, over the cruisers as they're approaching the V'ger cloud. That's stuff like that just was not done easily back then in 19. They filmed, it came out in 79, but they filmed all those scenes back in 77 and 78.
And are those among the ones that have, like, the effects within that movie that have held up to this day?
Till this day for me, yes.
Yeah. And what are some of the ones that haven't?
Some of the map paintings.
Map paintings.
Yeah.
Well, what's the reason? Just perspective?
Just now you could see them clearer on your 4K TV versus, just for a brief moment, and you have the opportunity and ability now to see things multiple times.
And to pause.
Yeah. But back then, you got to remember, in a theater, you're seeing that for the 3 seconds it's on screen, and then it's gone. So for the map paintings back then, those were fine.
Right.
But now when you can pause and you have 4K TV at home and all this other stuff, they don't hold up as well as some of the map paintings from Star Wars. Like the Hoth map paintings, were fantastic. They hold Cloud City map paintings. They still hold up too.
Right.
But also Star Trek: The Motion Picture has one of the best examples of a map painting that holds up incredibly well today and is almost undetectable. Is when the Vulcan shuttle Sarek comes to dock with the main bridge, and it does the flip, and you see the Enterprise secondary hull, the saucer hull, in the foreground, and then you see the shuttle come up and flip. That scene looks like it's filmed in front of the model, but it's not. That's a map painting.
Right.
And you wouldn't even know that. You wouldn't even know that unless I told you.
And what's the story behind the flip, if you can remember? If you can paraphrase it.
I don't know what the special, so forgive me for not knowing the name of the special effects houses, but one of the legend, the well-known production problems of Star Trek: The Motion Picture was that they changed visual effects houses halfway through, and the first effects house did the Klingon opening scene. So when the second special effects house or company came in, they said, we can't let that. Brand X, or I'm sure it's a famous one, and I know I'm not getting the names right or giving the names at all, but we can't let them get away with that great opening scene. We've got to do something on our own. And so that's the sole reason I was told, and I've read and heard on the internet and through fan magazines and stuff, that's the sole reason why the shuttle, the Sirach shuttle, does the flip, the double gainer to dock with the Enterprise bridge.
Well, so there you go, though. That's a textbook example of competition, bringing out really good stuff.
Yes.
And also, another thing I want to ask you, too, is a lot of the things, we were talking about this earlier, like, the transporters only exist because they didn't have, there were budget constraints or anything, or something like that.
Right.
Why do you think it is that sort of restrictions and stuff, why do you think that a lot of, like, the most iconic, whatever you want to call it, phenomena or whatever, like why is there that connection, that relationship, why is it that struggle breeds like better stuff?
Some of the most wondrous things in human history have come from necessity,
like a lot of technologies,
works of literature, decisions in history have come not from someone sitting down trying to create something earth-changing or something iconic. Very rarely does that result in something that is iconic or earth-changing. It's because out of necessity that these little happy accidents,
right?
That we get the technologies that we have right now. Like the microwave wasn't created to cook, it was created for some Post-it notes. Yeah, there you go. I can't, like I said, if I had time to prepare, we can come up with a lot of these examples.
Right. Yeah.
Things. Tempur-Pedic, memory cell beds and stuff like that. Those weren't created to be beds. Those were created for the Apollo program.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the astronauts had to. They call it the couch. In the command capsule, the astronaut couches. The seats they were in. They needed to be able to absorb and make the people comfortable from all those. The initial onset of all those G forces from the Saturn rocket launching.
Right.
And it had to be able to form around the astronauts and their suits and absorb the acceleration forces, and then also be comfortable.
Right. So basically, what it comes down to, though, is a more organic process of just kind of through necessity you're pushed. That is the impetus for this kind of stuff. Whereas as opposed to more like structured, like you're just going to sit around. You're going to sit in a room for a month and write and torture yourself over lines. Slave over a manuscript.
Absolutely. We have the transporter from basically as a result of budget constraints of filming the original series. We rarely, and I'm sure there are out there for people that want to listen and put in the comments. I'm sure there's out there that there is, an example that when someone goes, I want you guys to brainstorm and come out of that room with something iconic and something legendary.
Just sheer brute force. And
if there is, I'm not aware of it, but, we are aware of happy accidents, or happy circumstances that have resulted in something that, has changed the way we live our lives, and our history and our culture. The transporter is now, you can talk to, 99 out of 100 people that'll know what a transporter from Star Trek is, even without being a fan of the franchise.
So, all in all, would you say that Star Trek the Motion Picture is still impressive today, or has it been overshadowed by other things?
For me, yes. For generally objectively,
yes, as in it's still impressive.
For me.
Okay.
But for our culture, I don't think so. We have,
Is that depressing? That our standards are so high?
It's just, because I think some people still feel that 2001 is impressive today. So, I've heard that. People are still sold on the original Star Wars. Star Wars 1978. They're still sold on that. So, Star Trek is not going to hold up well. Star Trek the Motion Picture is not going to hold up well for everybody. I think Star Trek Wrath of Khan and Star Trek The Undiscovered Country hold up more so today than anything else in that first six film franchise.
What's your best advice to someone who might be on the fence about watching Star Trek the Motion Picture? Like, how would you tell them to come into the film? Like, what kind of mindset would you give them?
Just tell them, imagine yourself as a kid in 1979 after having seen Star Wars, and the only thing that you've had sci-fi wise before that was, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then Star Wars, and then you got Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers on TV.
Buck Rogers.
Yeah. You got to look at it in that lens. And before that, Space 1999. Those were your only, sci-fi franchises back then. So if you come back and you look at Star Trek in that lens, it's incredible. It's
right.
not. I can't say it's on the same level as Lucas's Star Wars 78. It's that was a game changer. That was incredible. And again, because of budgetary reasons, we have some of the most iconic things out of Star Wars.
Right.
Because he wasn't given an unlimited budget.
Exactly. So, how are you feeling right now?
Oh, I'm about ready to. My voice is about ready to go.
Okay, so how much you want? 3 or 4 more questions, maybe, or just quick?
Just one quick question.
One quick question. Okay.
Yeah.
So to end off, well, we'll do this one. Will be really quick. So then we'll just do one more. How about this one? What do you think the main theme of this film is about? It's about the alien or the robot V'ger trying to find its creator and everything, right?
Right.
What do you think? What do you think human beings want? Because there's that scene where Spock says that we don't know what we want, just like Vega or V'ger,
right?
And we look for our creator, just like V'ger. So, what is it exactly that you think human beings want as a species?
That's that question. Why? What does my existence mean? I think that's one of the messages in this movie. It's like, what's the meaning of life? V'ger was that. I've never said that before, but to answer your question, I'm thinking, V'ger's just looking for the same answers we are, but just on a different level. He's pure logic. Gather information, know all that it is available to know. That can be known. but he cannot know what it is to have emotions and being human, right? And then you just kind of compare that with us as like, what's the meaning of our life? That age old joke of a question. What's the meaning of life? No, it's different for everybody. I'm not prepared. I wasn't prepared to discuss that, but and I'm not really great in philosophy, so that to me, was that Roddenberry's thing? What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be a life form? V'ger doesn't know that. He just knows data, pure logic, like Spock said. So, but he doesn't know what it is to have feelings and emotions. So that's his unknown.
So even though he has a consciousness, it wasn't complete until the two living organisms form, merged with him.
It may not have been complete,
or only Deckard really kind of.
Right. Is it complete? Is him being infused with emotion and humanity? Does that make V'ger better or does it make him worse? Because remember, Spock started the beginning of the movie trying to be like V'ger.
Trying to be purely logical.
Purely logical. And here was an entity, here was a consciousness that was purely logical. That is exactly, the result or the goal of Kulinar. Here is a being that is exactly what Vulcans are trying to do. And yet, this being wants to have emotions and know what it is.
Yeah.
So, whatever we want to call that in philosophy,
Which I wouldn't know either. Yeah. So last question. Has your rating changed after our conversation at all, or do you?
Yeah, I would. Yet another foundational movie that you need to see. Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap. Never heard of it.
Oh my God.
We'll put that on the list.
You've heard the saying. These go to 11, right? Have you ever heard that?
Never heard of it either.
Oh my God!
I guess I'm missing out on a lot. Yeah.
So not only do I give this a 10, I'm going to give this one an 11.
An 11 out of 10. Oh, so through the roof.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the episode 13 of the Imperial Tides podcast. The first one that I did with Mein Fada. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a thumbs up. You can argue with us all day long in the comment section below. Subscribe, share, tell all your friends. We'll have a huge party someday, with all the subscribers and stuff. It'll be great. Stay tuned. We upload new videos every week. Look forward to a lot more like this and more Shakespeare and everything. Take care. Have a nice rest of your day or night or whatever. And bye for now.